everyone, and welcome back to the Shock Absorber podcast. It is wonderful to have you along with us. And my two regular co-hosts aren't here today, but it's wonderful, again, to have a guest co-host. We call you that?
I guess.
You've been on before.
I've been on before, but I when I was on before, I was a guest,
yes.
I think.
Ethan Crawshaw, how are you?
Hello, everybody. I am well.
What is your title again?
I'm the Youth Mission Pastor.
Youth Mission Pastor.
Soul Revival.
Yeah, cool. I just wanted to make sure we got that right. So welcome here. Yes, you're jumping in for Joel. Not for Joel. I'm here. You're jumping in for Stu and Tim, who are unable to make it today. But I'm excited you're here. We were just talking about something previously.
Yes.
A TV show.
We were.
We have both really gone into Apple TV Plus, which is called Slow Horses.
Excellent.
Now, I've watched the first two seasons. They're all the ones that have been out yet so far. There's another 2 seasons coming.
Is there?
Excellent. I'm very excited about.
That's fantastic.
You've just started season 2.
Yes, I have. Season 1 was phenomenal. I loved it.
So let's get your first opinion of how you're feeling about it so far, and then we can tell people what it's actually about.
I think it's great. I think, like I'll say as much like before saying fully what it's about. Like it's a spy show, and love
spy thriller.
Love a good spy thriller, and it's a really fun look at these characters and how they relate to one another and how they look after one another, but also how they kind of like want to go on their own because they're spies and they're like, and so they got to like learn how to make a team. Yep. I love a good like becoming a team story.
Oh, like when they do montages for bank robber movies.
Oh,
that's
the
awesome.
best.
Yep.
The best. I think that's one of my favorite things about a heist is I don't really care about the heist, but like getting everyone together is just
I think it's got to be one of my favorite things too.
Yeah, it's the best.
Yeah, that's really cool.
But yeah, what's Slow Horses actually about?
So yeah, as you said, it's a spy thriller, and it focuses on a character called Jackson Lamb, who is in charge of an area of MI5 called Slough House.
Yes.
Which is where basically anyone who's done something wrong or blown a mission or something like that just gets booted over there to slowly rot on the vine. And they set it up that way though too, don't they? They're like, this is where you go, your career's going to die. That's where you're going. Yeah. As you get into the series, they actually all get wrapped up. Jackson, the guy who runs, played by Gary Oldman, who runs Slough House, he was at part of the top leadership of MI5 back in the 70s and 80s. Yep. So, and he got kicked out for doing something in particular. We don't know what that is yet.
Yes,
I'm sure we'll find out at some point. But then gets this random bunch of spies who are all rather difficult to deal with. He's difficult to deal with. He's a very cranky, curmudgeonly character. That's putting it lightly. Yeah. But then they end up getting mixed up in things that are happening with the main part of MI5, and they get wrapped up in that. But I think the thing is, I was saying earlier, I think it's one of the best TV shows I've watched in the last 5 years.
It's pretty good.
And I think you made the point is that the writing is what's really cool. And I think it's shot beautifully. Like I think a lot of the shows on Apple TV Plus are shot that way. But I think the way that they the way that you're still involved in the story and there's so much intrigue, but they keep moving it on as well. It's just really, I love good writing in TV shows.
It's really nicely done, and I think like as we talked about the Slough House being where they get like kicked out too. Like I love you get kind of caught up in these characters that are written really nicely, but you kind of learn how and why each of them have ended up there, and that's a really cool thing to witness as they're sharing their lives with one another and they're chatting about stuff, and despite being these really secret agent types that usually would never have talked to each other, they kind of end up having to by being forced into this team together that they all don't like each other and they all don't want to be there. Yep. But yeah, they become friends, and that's really cool.
And we were saying it was so like I see it as being so high quality that there's nothing else that I want to watch on TV now because I don't think it matches up to that quality. Yeah. And I don't know why, but I really enjoy spy stories.
Yeah, you've loved them for a long time. We've had lots of chats about spy
but I don't
stories.
know why. I can't figure out why. I think it's because it's not just like a random act of crime. Like there's a reason they have to do what they're doing. Yeah. Rather than just, you know how like
the stakes are often really high as well.
And they're like, and they, you know, the tension is really built. Oh, that's the thing that we said too, was that it can build really slowly, but there's always tension within it because there's so much at stake, as you were saying, that it can be even a slow-moving show or a book even, but you know there's like, oh, why are they doing it? Like, there's a reason behind it. Or could they be double-crossed? Like, all that kind of thing. I think there's all that intrigue runs through it. And I think Speaks also like there's so much strategy behind it too. And I love a bit of strategy.
You do love a bit of strategy. See, I'm just along for the ride. I think it's and the people. I think it's
the story.
exciting.
You're there for the story.
I'm there for the story.
Well, that's fair enough too. But yeah, I can't watch anything else now. I'm like, even my wife was watching something else. I'm like, I can't do this. Is not Slow Horses. I'm just got to wait for the next season of Slow Horses.
Do you know when it comes out?
I did look it up, but I cannot remember.
Eventually.
Yeah.
It's coming soon. Very exciting.
Well,
Apple needs something to add to their repertoire.
Yes, absolutely. If you do happen to have a subscription to Apple TV Plus, check it out. You can watch the first episode for free. If you want to check it out, that would be cool.
There's a lot of swearing, so I'm not going to be the one to recommend it. But Joel has done it for us, so that's great.
Okay. Wow.
Thanks
you,
Joel.
for that. So let's get into the episode. Yeah,
Yes,
check out Slow
yes.
Horses if you do like it. But last week I was talking to Stu and Tim about how Stu challenged us. Do we still want to be friends as leaders first?
Yeah.
And I thought it was a really interesting discussion. You were part of that discussion where he originally did it in the meeting, the staff meeting, and we all had quite different reactions. So it'd be cool to ask you what you thought, like what your reaction was when Stu challenged us with that question to make sure. And I think he was ensuring. I mean, the key idea was he was ensuring to make sure that he wanted to make sure that we were still aligned as a team on what we were doing, and then obviously anything at the top of or anything in leadership will play out in the place that you're actually leading. Yeah. So what's your reaction? And then you had some thoughts on being friends as leaders too. So let's start with that. Though.
Yeah, I was really I think I got a bit fired up because I'm really passionate about being mates together, and I think that that's one of the things that intrinsically makes us different. And I think that we could probably, like, I personally could go get a job anywhere, but this is not in that way, but like I could go back into video work. I could go into back into childcare. I could go back into this other thing that I'm doing at the moment.
That's exactly what Tim said too.
Yeah, sure. It's like there's all these places I can be, but I want to be here because this is where my friends are, and I want to be able to make this happen with my friends, and like do this for God, of course, and only through Him can any of this happen.
Yeah.
But under Him, we're mates, and I think that's really important and really special, and not everywhere has that. And so there's lots of places I could go, but I'm here because I'm leading alongside my friends, and trying to, I don't know, if we think Jesus changes everything, let's change the world. Like, let's do it.
So why did you get fired up though? Because you wanted to, you're like, don't change what we've all kind of committed to?
I think so. I think it was a visceral reaction of like why wouldn't we want to be friends? Like, what's the
This is what we've been doing
like
for so long.
we've been doing this for ages.
Yep.
and don't go and like just turn on us now. Like what's going on? And it was this, I think it was and maybe I just hadn't had food that morning. Maybe I was a bit hangry, but the response was, as I was saying, was visceral. Like, it was this genuine, not fear, but it was no, I really want this. Like, I really want this to happen, and this is why I'm here. Like,
we've made choices to pursue this particular type of leadership or strategy
and type of ministry, right? Like, we're serving God in this way partially because of this whole idea, and that is such a big element to it that taking that away, I think, would change Soul Revival at its core, and it would change our ministry. Like, it'd change our leadership team at its core, but it would also, as a byproduct, change everything else we do. At the same time we're having these conversations, we're starting some new stuff in the youth ministry. We're starting up some leadership Bible studies, which is not a new thing. Like, it's lots of churches do them, but they're Bible studies focused on the youth leadership teams.
You're kind of realigning a few different things.
Yeah. And a big part of that is let's give the youth leaders another space to be friends, because they've got Saturday night and they've got Friday night. Let's give them another day of the week. Like, that's kind of a lot of that idea is not actually, like, I think a lot of churches will do this same thing, but it won't necessarily have that strategic goal in mind. Whereas I'm like, you can go to any Bible study you want at Solis, because they're all going to be great theologically and you're going to get great Bible out of them. So it's not to give our leaders more Bible, because they're already getting that. That's excellent. It's actually to go, no, let's do that. Let's do that. Delving deeper into the word together, because that's going to bring us closer as friends, and so we can operate better as a team, and because we're friends already, and that same thing carries over to it. Like that starts from the top down, right? Like I can't then go back to my team and go, hey, we've been trying to make all this happen with our Bible studies, but like the staff team aren't even friends, so it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like,
okay.
It's like how can we expect our cleanup teams to be friends when we're not able to be friends, right? So that was I think a bit of my reaction there.
Well, this is a personal reflection for you, or a question for your personal reflection. Why do you think that strategy really calls you to live it out?
I think, well, for starters, my closest friends are all here, right? And so I'm gonna live it out, right?
Yeah, and your dad's also been living it out for mum and dad, sorry.
Yeah,
been living it out for a very long time.
I have been, so that's where I've gotten to. I've gotten to all my closest friends are all here, and I've still got heaps of really good mates from school, and friends from work and stuff that I am good friends with and will hang out with and love and like play soccer with and stuff. But like, for example, our soccer team is getting filled up by people from church because we're just like, well, let's come and be friends. It doesn't matter how old you are or like whether we went to school together or whether we work together. It's actually like we're just all mates, right? And so that's kind of, it looks like now living it out in every element of church is I'm doing youth ministry with my friends. I'm doing Bible study with my friends. I'm doing soccer with my friends. I'm doing church on a Saturday night with my friends. I'm doing, I don't know, I'll do fitness with my friends. And I am a raging extrovert. So
Well, no, that's true.
It definitely leans into that. Like it definitely helps that. But I think even if I wasn't, I wouldn't necessarily be doing as many things with my friends, but I would still be needing and relying on and getting love from my friends, because it's about the energy you get, right? It's not about the importance of other people in your life. It's just that like an introvert will get less energy from being in a group.
Yeah.
Whereas I will get less energy from being on a one-on-one. Like it's wild. Like even I'm so extroverted that even one other person is not enough to give me energy. I need more people. And so I'm really energized by having lots of friends and doing stuff with people. That's a personal reflection. But I see the importance of it outside of my extroversion, right? Because it's the friends I've got are solid and Christians and loving and
built on that kind of biblical idea of friendship. No, that's more saying that's in the Bible, but I think what we think of what it's saying in the Bible is that we should be friends together, and it's built on the relationship we have in Jesus. And as Stu has often said, we're reconciled to God through what Jesus done on the cross, but also we're reconciled to each other so that we can love each other, care for each other, support each other, minister together, all those kind of things, because of what Jesus has done.
And Jesus says to his disciples, he says, "You are my friends if you do what I command you. I do not call you servants any longer, because a servant does not know what the master is doing. But I have called you friends, because I have made known to you everything I have heard from my Father." This just in John 15. And it's, so it is biblical, like this idea of Jesus turning to his mates and going, we are friends. And we are friends not because I'm telling you what to do, but because you know me and you know
what
the
has
Father
been done for you,
and what has done. And so because we know the Father, we can be friends with one another, and we can be friends with Jesus, and put that into our lives, right? And so we get this. So where I am now is beautiful in that I've got all these friends now, and I think that has come from years of, like, I've been very blessed to grow up in this community. And I've spent a long time with the people I'm now friends with. I got married in January last year, and my bridal party, I think I had 7 guys in my.
You had a big one.
It was solid. It was pretty beefy, but all of those guys were mates that I had known for either a long time or a short time, but they have been mates that I've gotten through church. And not necessarily like a few of the boys were from school, but they were the ones from school that ended up at church with me. And I think it was a really beautiful moment to be able to go, oh, this is like the fact that I struggled to get to 7 was a really lovely testament to how this works, is that you actually, if you lock in and go, yeah, no, these are going to be my friends, you actually get friends, if that makes sense. Like it's easy to be like, oh, like I've been trying really hard to get friends, but I don't actually come on Saturday night. And I'm not really involved in any ministry. And this, I say Saturday night because I'm very Saturday night centric in my.
This is here at Sorrel Bible.
As I go to my service. Yep. But the same thing could apply for Sunday morning at Kirrawee or Yarrawarra or Cronulla. But it's like, yeah, no, why am I not friends with the people I'm with? Well, I'm not hanging out with them. And as you hang out with them, suddenly, oh my goodness, you're friends with them. Wild.
So is that like a proximity thing?
I think so.
You mean?
Yeah. And a time thing. And there's always going to be people that you're not best friends with. That's okay. Yeah. Right? Like that's just how friendship works.
Yeah, I feel like there's like varying levels of closeness that you would have with friends.
Yeah,
but
of course.
Yeah, but if you can sit down and have a conversation because Jesus brings you together, regardless of what age you are.
Yeah. Or what you're interested in.
Yep.
Or like I have friends that are really, 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 really into, I don't know, cricket. And I don't care at all.
Yeah.
But I will sit and talk to them about cricket or about anything else, right? Because like I know that their favorite thing is Jesus and then cricket. And my favorite thing is Jesus and then definitely not cricket.
Yeah, what's I want to know what came in the next ranking.
Yeah, I don't know. I actually am not sure.
Extra
probably something
version.
nerdy like books or something. I don't know. But
nothing wrong with that though. That's the thing.
No.
That's the thing, isn't
but that's it,
like,
right? Like I'm never going to talk to some of my friends about the amount of epic fantasy I read.
Yes.
Purely not because they won't listen to me.
What's the thing?
Which they
like,
will.
Talking about Spy, I really struggle with fantasy.
There you go.
Yeah.
But we're really good mates.
Yeah.
And that's okay, right? Like you're able to be different to people in this space. I think one of the interesting things is people come to churches and they go, oh, well, I'm struggling to make friends because I haven't found anyone like me.
Right.
And a lot of the idea of this has been, it actually doesn't matter if they're like you. Like you'll find stuff that you're both interested in. Like we both like football. We don't both like spy novels.
Yep.
But you know what I mean? Like, and we both like Slayer House, right? And I think that's a really good example. Slow horses, sorry. They call it Slayer House the whole time and they only call themselves Slow Horses like 3 or 4 times.
Well, yeah, because they say that the slow horses are at Slayer House, don't they?
And yeah, we really like Slow Horses. And that is a thing we have in common. And so it is a thing we can talk about. But we're different, right? And that's okay.
Yeah.
And
well, God has created us uniquely.
Fully.
But then he's also reconciled us to each other. Yeah. I think that's the thing I'm thinking
really
about.
Important.
And so you were saying that you think that some people go to church and go, I can't find anyone else here.
I think so.
That is like me or is like what I want out of it?
I'm sure that both of those things is it. I can talk to youth ministry concepts. I was talking to Dad recently. I don't know if he's said it previously.
Dad is Stu.
Sorry.
Just clarify for people listening and watching.
I was talking to Stu recently and it is I'm not sure if he's talked about this on the podcast before, but if a youth group kid comes to a youth group anywhere, not just here, but anywhere, and they said, oh, I've come and I'm looking for people my age and who are like me. Well, you would need a youth group of 200 kids to fulfill that for every type of person and every grade.
Even especially true now.
Yes.
As culture continually changes.
Of course. And people we are becoming more and more different to one another because our niches are more and more, and because the internet is so saturated with hundreds of people and thousands of people that are into this one little thing that maybe 1 in 50 is actually interested in, but because we have access to so many people. But anyway, so I think that as teenagers, that's the case, right? You need a group of 200 people to get that perfect. And even then it probably won't be perfect.
No.
And I think that really easily computes into adults. And as we grow up, we still rock up to church and go, I want what I want out of this. And I want the people I want out of this. And I'm going to rock up to my gathering and sit with my friends and then go home and then go out to lunch with them or out to dinner with them. these are like, they're not bad things to do, at all, right? They're actually beautiful things because you're going and you're hanging out with your friends.
Yeah.
But the thing that makes it different, and the reason that I probably got a bit like, what did I say before? Animated?
Yeah,
animated.
A bit fired up.
Bit fired up when Stu raised the concept of challenging whether we still want to be friends, was because, yes, I could just hang out with the people I want to hang out with and then go home, but I wouldn't have met half the people I've met, and I wouldn't be friends with half the people I'm friends with. And I keep using my bridal party as an example, but there was people 10 years older than me, and there was people like 5 years younger than me.
Younger brothers.
My brother's 6 years younger than me. But on Katie's side, one of her youth girls was in it, in our bridal party, and one of her youth leaders was in our bridal party, right? Like, you got this really cool, not just, that looks like it's a swing of ages, but it's actually just friends that are just, we're just like, we don't care, we're hanging out. And that is something that's really beautiful, that only comes from coming in and going, I want you all to be my friend. That's just, yeah. I was reading a book, and it is.
I like that. I should say that I share your love of books, not fantasy books.
Yeah, just different genres. This is a murder mystery, fantasy kind of thing.
Oh gosh, how many other categories does it fit in?
Well, yeah,
sci-fi.
Well, no, it's kind of.
Oh my God.
It's this like Agatha Christie, like Groundhog Day kind of thing. It's awesome. It's unreal. I loved every second of it.
What's it called?
The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, and there is a quote in that where the character Evelyn chats to. It's at the start of the book. Chats to this guy. He's lost his memory. And he is just chatting to her, and he's just really refreshing. And she calls him her friend, and they've never they don't know each other at all. And he goes like, why have you called me your friend? And she said, well, I like you, and I think you're cool, and it's too much effort to work up to friendship, so I thought I'd just skip there all the way. And it's something along that's not necessarily word for word. It was written a lot more Agatha Christie-ish, so like old timey era. But that's that it's the same kind of line of thinking of, I'm just calling you my friend because you're here, and you're like, we're here for the same reason. And so we're friends now.
If you're doing that, you skip the part of you're saying perhaps that. There's one way we've been almost told to build friendships is you spend lots of close time with a small group of people, and that's how you build friends. Like Stu's used the example of the TV show Friends.
Yes,
you just have 6 friends and that's it. But this is interesting. So you think about if someone comes to church and you're like, well, because what Jesus has done, we're friends already.
Yep.
So we've skipped all that section, and now we can just almost not pretend, but we've skipped that whole process, but we're friends now because of what Jesus has done.
Well, yeah, you just
let's start from there and then just build the relationship, keep building on the relationship from there.
You skip all the hard stuff, right? And you get to skip all the hard stuff because I was hoping I wrote it down, but I can't find this quote. You skip the hard part of it. There's this really cool. Again, this is a C.S. Lewis quote, but he talks about how this lady came up to him and said, I've fallen out of love with my husband. And he has said, it's just a fallen out of love situation. It's not an abusive marriage. It's nothing like that. And he says, well, come back to me in a month. But in that month, love him, whether it's hard or not. And so do the dishes and make him breakfast in bed. Do all the things you would do for him when you were doing stuff out of love for him. And then she's like, oh, okay, I guess I'll give it a go. And she goes and does it, and she comes back a month later and he goes, oh, so do you still want to leave her? Do you still want to leave him? And she says, oh, no, of course not. I would never want to do that. And it was just this idea of sometimes you actually just got to put in the hours and actually just love either way. Right. And so it's, you actually, what I'm trying to say is, I know that seems contrary to what we were saying before, where you don't have to put the effort in, but you don't have to put the effort in to get from not knowing anyone to friends. But once you're friends, you put the effort in
Yeah.
and just love them as Jesus has called us to
So
love.
that's a sacrificial thing, isn't
Yeah,
it?
right. And it's not in this romantic way that like I don't have to make you breakfast in bed.
I'd love you
Right.
to, but yeah.
But it becomes out of this like, oh, I'm going to sit with you at dinner regularly. I'm going to send you a text when you're having a hard time. I'm going to be praying for you.
Yeah.
I'm going to be, and that's because you're here. You are my friend, and because you're here, we're going to both put the effort in now, not to become friends, but to work on our friendship.
And again, because Jesus is the ultimate model of sacrifice.
Yes.
That's. I'm trying to piece those two things together of like the sacrificial love that Jesus has shown us and completed for us. that opens us up to be more sacrificial in that way, which kind of lends itself to saying like you are skipping those parts of what is typically considered a way that you form a friendship.
Yeah,
that's really interesting. Do you think that, and you said that people come to church going, oh, there's not this here for me, not this here. Do you think they're missing that sacrificial element?
I don't want to go so far as to say that, because I think
that's like kind of shaming people for not having it.
I think it is. And I think it's a really genuine thing, right? To be honest, I think that if that is how you want to do church, that is totally okay.
And they also may need it.
Exactly.
It may be in a point in a season of their life where they may need that.
Some people need a really close group of mates that are the only people they talk to. And that's okay. Like at the end of the day, it's this presenting our way of doing stuff is not us telling everyone how they should do stuff. It's actually just saying, hey, we've got this idea and we reckon it's biblical and we reckon it's fun and we reckon it works. Because look at all these people that are now friends and look at all these people that are now following Jesus.
Who are also very different ages.
Who are all very different.
Yeah.
And so if you look at this, it works, right? And here's this idea. But if you don't want it, that's okay. Yeah. There are
the opt-in, opt-out idea.
100%. We celebrate the regulars and the irregulars, and it's not sinful to not want to be friends with us. It's not like at its core, like it's just preference, right? But what we're saying today, I think, is that at Soli's, this is how it works, right? Like I was saying before that I was chatting to someone in the last few weeks, and I've only come to this realization properly recently because of that conversation. But they were saying, "Oh, I've joined this ministry, and I'm struggling to become friends with the people in that ministry." And my question then was, "Are you going to late night with them? It's our Saturday night. We hang out as friends."
So on Saturday nights, on Saturday afternoon / night, we have church, and then we have dinner, and then there's around 8:30 we do what we call late night, where we just continue to hang out.
We just continue to hang out, and I'm like, "Do you go to late night with them? Do you hang out with them at dinner?" And they were like, "No," and I was like, "Well, but I'm with them every Friday," and it's like, "Well, but every Friday you're doing your ministry."
Doing ministry.
Right. And so, yes, you can be friends with them because I'm friends with all the people I'm doing ministry with, but that comes out of Saturday night. And so there's another separate thing that people say is, "Oh, I don't have anyone, like people don't ask me over to dinner." Like that's a weird thing. I just want my group of friends who invite me over to dinner regularly. And again, I would say the same thing of like, I'm going to invite people over for dinner, but also I eat dinner with you every week. Right, I have dinner with you every Saturday, and I have the opportunity to do that every Saturday. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to be friends with you here in this place that we've set up to be friends. And then from that, because of that, we're friends on Tuesday night at Bible study. Because of that, I might invite you to dinner, but I don't have to, but I might. And because of that, I might have you over with, I might play soccer with you, right? But it's not, "Oh, I play soccer with these people so I can be friends with them at church." It's not, "I'm in Bible study with them so I can be friends with them at church." It's not, "They invited me over for dinner, I can now be friends with them at church." It's actually, it's a really little thing, but it is that mentality flip. And if that mentality flip happens, you go, "Oh, this is what this is all about." It suddenly becomes a friendship created. I'm for people who are listening and not watching visually, I'm using my right hand for this. Created here that enables left hand friendship, but it all happens at right hand on Saturday night. Or at church, whatever. The Saturday night's a really good example because we have church and then we stay around and then we have late night. Sunday morning at Kirrawee is really good. A bunch of them get there early, then they have breakfast, and then they go to the church service, and then they hang out till midday.
Yep.
Because it's just we're hanging out, right? It's the same premise, but I go to Saturday, so that's where all of my ministry is. So I've got that in my brain. But hopefully, Joel, you can correct me if all these ideas aren't swinging together properly, because I don't want to be too rambly, but and I want to try and stay a little bit structured because that is something that's usually helpful. But it's that idea of if we are friends at church, we will be friends everywhere else,
right?
Not the other way around.
And that's the element of the sacrificial love thing too.
Yes,
when you
that's
come
where
into
that comes in
church.
for sure.
So you come into church, which allows us to become friends at church through various means of, we have coffee beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
This again, Saturday night, we have coffee beforehand, we have a gathering, and we have dinner afterwards because, no better way to chat to people than over a meal, we think. But then there's even more time after that to build relationship and friendship because of what Jesus has done for us. But then because we're doing that flows out into all the other things that we're doing during the week, whether it is a community group or a Bible study or in our ministries.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, I think that also we have these structures and they are helpful. There is
This church?
At this church.
Yes.
There is a trellis set up to be friends with one another that people can use or not. Right? That's kind of the vibe. But that point of whether people want to use it or not is really important, because I think that you can go into these structures and never talk to anyone new. You can walk in, you can have lunch, you can have breakfast or dinner with your people, and then you can go home. Or you can walk in and leave straight away. Or you can not come early for coffee. Or you can, there's all these things you can not do or do differently within these structures. And then you can be like, oh, well, I don't, where's all the friendship? What's going on? And it's like, well, actually. Which
again, is talking about the proximity thing. I'm in proximity of all these kind of people, but you're thinking about where is that proximity happening?
Yeah. And again, this is, I want to really stress that I'm not casting judgment on anyone. I'm just saying that here is an issue that I have heard about.
And you and I are quite passionate about
I think this is
strategy that we have adopted.
Of course,
Soul Revival.
And I think it's not always. It's really countercultural, and it's really different. And so if people aren't going to get it, and that makes sense,
people will butt up a bit against that stuff too.
Of course, and there's going to be differences, and that's what we keep talking about, celebrating difference. And so when people have different ideas, that's okay. And so, but it's more about here is what we're trying to do situation. If that makes sense. I've lost my train of thought. What was I going to say before? I think a big thing is this sacrificial thing is really important, because it's up to you to, when in these structures, when we're not building up, you're at the friendship level, and from that friendship level, it's up to you to step out of your comfort zone and kind of make that happen. And it's up to them too. But it's not only it's a bridge situation. It's you can't just build a bridge from one side, or it falls down. And so you got to actually work together to be friends on this stuff, and that's a beautiful thing in action, and it looks amazing, and it works. But you can't just rock up and sit with the people you want to sit with, right?
Well, you can.
You can, but then, you can. It just if you want this to work.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. No, thank you for that clarification. That's really important.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important that what I'm hearing from you is you're exceptionally passionate about doing ministry and life in the way that you're talking about. Sometimes the way that we do speak really passionately about the way we like to do things at Soul Revival can put a little bit of people offside, because I think it is.
Possibly.
I think it is countercultural. I think your point about it being countercultural is actually. Maybe some people that come from other churches go, this is completely different. I can see what's going on here, but then it's a personal level, which you were saying about is like, I need to step into this.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think the other thing, again, just to rewind a little bit again, what we're saying is that, well, because Jesus has sacrificed himself on the cross to allow us to have that relationship with God, that also reconciles us to each other. So then we can express that by being sacrificial to each other as well.
Yeah.
And I think, there's an argument sometimes to be like, do you come to church to be served, or you come in church to serve?
Yeah.
And I think those two are quite fluid, because sometimes you'll turn up going, man, I just need to hang out with one
of those
person.
weeks. Yeah.
Or I've had a tough week, or I'm like, man, I'm super excited, I want to talk to all these people, but then someone else really needs love, and you're like, it's being sacrificial just to spend time with that person because they just need a bit of support at that time.
Of course.
But I think it's all laid on that foundation of the sacrificial love, whether it is friendship, or even our marriages, or like how we lead at church, and all that kind of thing is all laid on a foundation of like that. So, yes, if anyone is listening and they hear us saying, this is the only way to do it, that's not what we're trying to say, but it's just we're exceptionally passionate about it, I think.
And we've tried to say that a few times, but unfortunately I think it's easy to talk about all of this like at the big macro level, like at the big level. And so when you're at the big level, like overlooking it, and you're not talking about individuals, it sounds blunt, and it sounds ungracious, and it sounds here's the way to do it. Everyone else
challenging.
Yeah, and maybe it does sound challenging, and I don't think that's a bad thing, and that's why I'm content to say it like we're saying it, right? But it's important to go, as we have individual conversations, it's going to be really different, because every individual is going to have a different need and a different focus, and even if it's as nuanced as extroversion versus introversion, or if it's as nuanced as when I get to church, I have nothing left in my tank, and I just can't. Right? I'm like, cool, that's great. Sit with your person every week.
And again, but
that's so good.
Even those people are feeling that way, they've sacrificed. They could have just gone home.
Yeah, they've
sacrificed to turn up because I still want to be at church.
It's unreal.
Yeah,
and so they're just two little examples of times where I am willing to throw all of this big picture stuff out the window of big groups of friends and sacrificial whatevers, and to be like, no, actually, you just need to look after yourself and look after the people around you, because that's what you're capable of at the moment, and that's okay, and that's good, and it's beautiful, and it's what we're made to do, right? We're made to look after one another and be looked after by one another. As you said, Jesus, when he died and rose again, he reconciled himself. He reconciled us to God, but he also reconciles us to each other, and so we get an opportunity to love one another and be gracious to one another. And so when we talk about these big concepts, maybe it's a bit late. Maybe we should have started with this rather than retrospectively saying this. But I think it's really important to understand that what we are saying. Like, I'm not backing down from the stuff we were saying. Like, I think it'd be really important to be hardcore with this. Like, be friends with one another. Like, you're already there. Like, by rocking up, you're friends with me. Let's hang out.
Jesus, everything else, has done all the hard work for us.
Yeah, everything else is done. There is nothing in your life that is stopping me being friends with you, because Jesus died for you. And actually, no, I take that back. There is nothing stopping you because Jesus died for me.
Yes.
And so, actually, it's me being like, I love you guys, and as Christians, when we rock up, there is nothing stopping other people being friends with us, because Jesus died for us. And so we can forgive and we can love and unconditionally. And sin stops that, and it doesn't work all the time. And we're not great at it. I'm not great at it. Like, I try. But there's that idea of like that's not going away. I don't think that's a core part of Soul Revival, is we are friends with one another.
Hence you getting a little bit feisty about it. Well, I certainly value all your thoughts and opinions on that. It's been really cool to get you to really, what's the right word? wax lyrical. That's what I was trying to think of.
What?
Great to hear you wax lyrical
Wax
about
lyrical.
friendship there, Ethan.
What does that mean?
I think that you got to look it up now, do you?
Yes.
It means just like talking about
Oh,
something in particular.
to talk in a highly enthusiastic and effusive way.
That's you about everything.
That is me about most things.
Yeah,
Yes.
but it was cool to hear.
Particularly this stuff. I love this.
But also I can hear the way that you think really deeply about that, so I appreciate that. about you
I
too.
do spend a lot of time on this. Like
I can tell.
It's in the back of my brain a lot, just chugging along, and particularly when a lot of the not issues, but a lot of the
questions.
questions are about why does this work? How does this work?
And
Does
again,
this work?
it's the same with the stuff meaning. Why do we do this?
Exactly.
Why are we doing it? Yeah, that's cool. Anyway, let's move on a little bit. It's something that's kind of related though. Is I was reading an article by there's a writer online who I like called David Perel, and he writes some really interesting pieces. He's non-Christian, and he recently wrote one or put one out called He wrote 28 pieces of life advice. I got this out of he does an annual review at the end of every year. He writes this big long piece about it, annual review of his whole year. Anyway, so he linked back to this one of 28 pieces of life advice. But I thought there's a couple in here that a bit of fun ones that we can have a look at, but also some other ones that are that probably relate to what we were just talking about. So I picked a couple. So here's his first one. Block off 90 minutes in your calendar every morning to work on the most important thing. Wake up early if you need to. Do not compromise. I find that quite interesting. I think we're often in working environments that rely, or we think we need to rely on the constant interruptions, whereas our brains are not built to do that.
No.
Our brains are actually to work consistently on one thing and then move to the next.
Yep.
And I've actually heard that you experience something called decision fatigue. So the more times you're interrupted, the more times you need to make decisions, the less likely you are to make decisions later in your day.
That is hilarious.
Is it also true?
It is very accurate. I have told my wife that I have to change gears every time I fix it. It actually feels like a mental gear shift of I've just been in work mode, and if at any point I have to go anywhere else, I have to actually shift gears. And on a day where I haven't gotten much done, it's because I actually never got into gear, and I'm always getting up and moving around, and so that's really interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, think about that.
very
All right.
accurate.
What about this one though? Have you been?
I suck at waking up early, so I would struggle to the not compromise bit.
Well, maybe don't compromise on blocking off your 90 minutes, the first 90 minutes of your day.
That's fair.
Here's the next one. So you've flown internationally a number of times, as
I
have
have.
I. That sounds like you're a real jet setter. But yeah,
a man of many cultures. I've been everywhere, man.
yeah. Always fly with long socks and a zip-up jacket in case it gets cold on the plane. You can change your socks when you get to the airport. If you have a jacket, use the extra pockets for storage. I thought that was always funny, but
That's great.
the long socks makes sense because you do get cold on planes,
you get
especially if you're flying a long distance.
Yeah.
So it's a good. It's
Yeah,
like
I'm about
always.
that.
That's like your standard. Get on a plane and wear that. I think that makes sense. I didn't used to have long socks, but now I do.
I exclusively have long socks. So,
Do you exclusively?
like
You have
not
long
short.
legs
To
fit.
Well,
the
but
long
I have
socks to fit.
I have
long
fun
legs.
socks, so you can't. There's not heaps of like short socks that are.
Well, you can't
fun.
see them, can
Yeah,
you?
exactly right. So-
yeah, right. What about this one? And I know that you talk about Soccer getting up early, but nothing good happens between the hours of 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. Go home.
I couldn't agree with this more.
Really?
Yeah,
Why?
yeah. Because even when you're actually, it's like, oh yeah, I'm a night owl and I'm productive.
Am I gonna keep?
It's-
Is it being productive or like? I'm thinking like if you get to the point where you're hanging out with someone, and you're like, I just want this to continue, but you just get more and more tired.
Oh, I do
you
love
reckon
that. No,
happens?
that's fun. I love that.
Yeah,
Actually,
okay.
that's true. That's very fun. It is like, I think Week Away is a really good example of it. Like we were talking a lot about the friendship stuff earlier,
Yeah.
and that was Week Away is a really good example of that in action. But it also results in 1 a.m. to 4 a.m. chats that are just ludicrous. We were it was the last night of Week Away last year, and there was a whole bunch of raisin bread left over, and the boys were up until 3 a.m. eating a hole through the raisin bread, not like around it, and then putting it back in the packaging just to give it to me the next morning and put a carrot in there so that without me knowing, so that I was driving home the next day and just munching on some raisin bread, and then suddenly there's a carrot in the middle of this thing. It was the saddest moment of my life.
So they take each piece out and eat a hole in the piece,
Yep.
and then they put them all back into
Then they put it all back in.
the packet.
Yeah, and that happened at 3 a.m.
Wow.
So, in summary, nothing good happens.
Well,
between
well,
1 and
that's
4.
interesting because there's actually the thing of it. Saturday Night Live, they have. I think it might be Tuesday nights. They make all the writers stay up overnight
That's really fun.
to get all silly ideas and
Yeah.
think and make things happen. So that's interesting. Also, didn't really probably lend itself to people, encouraging people to take drugs to stay awake.
Well,
and
yes,
stuff.
yes. Yes, that
There's
does.
I'll let you find out those stories for yourself. Here's my favorite one though. Remember, there's a favorite piece of life advice anyway. Remember the hotel bathroom principle. So this is the writer David saying this, whenever I'm in a city and I need to use the bathroom, I walk into a fancy hotel. They always have nice bathrooms, and if you're dressed well and walk confidently, they won't hassle you for using it. Though the world is becoming more casual, you should dress well enough to walk into a 5-star hotel and be able to use their bathroom. I think that is next level advice.
I agree. I heard something similar to that recently.
Did you?
Yeah, it's just something popped up on Instagram. However, I also heard something in a podcast about staying at 5-star hotels, and they were saying that there's a bell curve of the way people are dressed at a 5-star hotel. There are the people who can't afford one and are dressed like they can't afford one. And then there is like the middle ground of all these people who dress really, really nicely to compensate for the fact that they're actually like they can afford it, but they're middle ground. And then there's the filthy rich,
or their companies paid for it,
or the company, or they're filthy rich.
Yep. And then they just dress
And
like
they're
slobs.
like, they dress like slobs. That was this guy who was like, yeah, and I'm in that category. And I was like, whoo.
Whoa,
Yes,
all right.
it was very spicy.
Way to brag.
Yeah, but
There's a lot of robes.
yeah,
There'd
yeah,
be a lot of robes.
yeah,
in
a
that
lot of
scenario.
robes. Yeah,
Robes and those sandals, sandal things that they give you.
yeah, yeah. I would.
Which my wife
I
loves.
totally would love this.
And I cannot be bothered.
The robes and the sandals.
Yeah.
I'm all about it.
I don't know.
First thing when I get into if there's robes,
Is it?
I'm getting a robe on.
Over your clothes? Or
Yeah,
you-
of course. I
Wow.
don't care. I'll just chuck a robe on. Any excuse. Any excuse.
All right, here's the two ones that I really wanted to talk about though.
Yep.
And this is interesting to come from a non-Christian writer.
Yep.
Religion is core to the human experience, but the way contemporary elites and academics dismiss it is a major blind spot. Don't just read about religion, experience it for yourself, even if you're a non-believer. Attend religious service from all walks of faith. What's your first reaction when you read that?
Well, I think it's true.
Duh. Is that what you-
I'm like, well done figuring that out, mate.
Yeah.
If you're still listening, the camera's gone. But
Yeah, so the camera just turned off,
So on
unfortunately.
YouTube, that's rough. But everyone else, nothing's changed. She'll be right. I think that it's really good, and it shows that we have been doing stuff for thousands of years, and that stuff is intrinsically part of the human experience.
Christians have been doing that? Or
Religious
all
people,
humans?
but I think Christians. God is real, and He made us as spiritual beings. We're not like everyone else. When we were made in God's image, we were made to have a relationship with Him, and
When you say not
humans-
like everyone else,
not like animals. So
Yes,
not like monkeys
yes,
and,
yes.
and whales and I don't know.
every other
everything
living
else.
living thing
Yes.
on the earth.
Yes.
Great.
And we were made, because we were made for a relationship with God, we are as a species constantly seeking something spiritual. And Jesus came and was like, this is what it is, guys. And God to the Israelites was like, guys, this is what it is. And that's been a fantastic thing. And that's what we often talk about Christianity. We often talk about hearing the gospel as the greatest way to love someone, and to be loved is to be told the gospel. Because if at a baseline humans are all at some point needing something spiritual, getting told the real thing is the most loving way to go. And that's a really cool way of looking at it that I've heard in the past.
It is a really interesting way, and it kind of fits into what we've been talking about in the evangelism series that we've done 2 series ago, and that holding the middle evangelical line was something that really came out of that series that we talked about, and just preaching the gospel, which is the truth.
Yep.
And I think that's really interesting. And it's interesting that I wonder if this David Perel writer might end up coming to Jesus one day.
Maybe.
Because of that. And he may not.
You may not.
As well. But I find it quite interesting that how he talks about how important that's that spiritual side where it's often dismissed. But as we talked about in the evangelism series again, that people are seeing church as a little bit outdated or strange or possibly even dangerous, but they're still spiritual.
Yeah.
And I think in that tone or that mindset of people are still open to talk about Jesus as long as we preach the truth.
Yeah.
I think that's what's really important about that. As long as we talk about the gospel and focus on the gospel, everything else falls by the wayside, but it doesn't mean it's unimportant. But it's the central line is like what Jesus has done for us. And really coming back to what we're talking about the friendship as well. It's the same thing. I think it's the gospel.
Yep.
Yeah. I did have another point, but we might leave this for next week.
Yeah.
Because I actually said that we'd do this with one of Stu's tweets, but then Stu wasn't able to make it. So let's go. I want your one sentence answer to this, and then I'll bring it up on the next episode as well,
Sure.
Ethan. Spend at least 20% of your social time with people who are at least a decade older than you. Family members do not count. Do not aim for mentorship, so you getting something out of it. Aim for a two-way exchange of value. You'll bring them vision and energy, and they'll give you wisdom and opportunities.
I think it would be really fun to do all of these again next week.
Yes.
To spend the whole time talking about this, because you could spend the whole time talking about this.
Yes, I think so too.
Each little bit of it is really, really awesome. My thought is I'm loving the don't aim for mentorship thing. I think sometimes
I'm just going to get this out of this person who I think's done a good job.
Or the other way around.
Yep.
I'm only going to have a relationship with that young person because I get to mentor them.
Or they'll get something done for me or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think there is something really beautiful about going, this person is just a person I want to be friends with.
And you end up with that two-way exchange of value that he's talking about anyway.
Yeah. And because that's what friendship is. It's not, and some friendships are not perfect. And there are some friendships that are very one way, and that's fine. But the ideal is just be friends with them. And don't aim for anything else, and the stuff will come. It's really lovely. Like mentorship is a beautiful, excellent thing, but I think it's really cool that if you're looking to spend at least 20% of your time with people who are at least a decade older than you, look to be friends with them.
Yeah, that's right. Yep, and it fits, and I think that fits extremely well with what we've been talking about today.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably time to wrap it up. The other thing that we were going to talk about, but she wasn't able to make it, is ministry is not about solving one problem at a time, but it's about moving from one gospel opportunity to another.
Oh, I love that.
So yeah, we'll have to talk about that again.
Spoilers for next week.
Very soon. Well, we spoiled it. I spoiled it last episode, and then we didn't even do it this week.
We're just continuing it on. It's like a
teaser, a teaser trailer that doesn't ever end.
It's like post-credit scenes of just like slowly building up to Endgame, the big moment.
Finale. Well, I hope we don't have a finale for the Shockers Orbit for quite some time, because we want to keep that going.
No, it would be good to keep it going.
It'll last a long time.
Yeah.
Anyway, Ethan, thank you so much for your time.
Oh, it was a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
I really appreciate you really sharing your thoughts on friendship, especially. That was really, really fun.
It was really fun.
Interesting to dig deeper into that. Thank you, everyone listening. We really appreciate it.
I was pointing at the camera, but the camera's gone.
Yeah, it's all right. We'll fix that for next week. And if anyone does have any questions or a topic or something that we're talking about on this these episodes, and you want to dig deeper into it, like friendship, you want to call us out on something and we can respond to it, you can email me at joel@shockersorbit.com.au. Check us out at shockersorbit.com.au as your website, and subscribe if you haven't already, whether you're listening on the podcast or watching us on YouTube. We really appreciate it. And as always,
get in the comments.
I'd love to see some comments as well.
Get in the comments.
Thank you. But we always finish with a one way. So thank you very much.
One way.